Hello, magical human, and welcome back to Madison Mindset, the podcast. I am your host, Madison. I'm a yoga teacher, a mindset and spirituality coach, and a lover of all things life and learning about ourselves and the meaning of this beautiful life we are sharing together. In this episode, I feel incredibly blessed to introduce to you the hosts of the Holistic Herbalism podcast, which is one that I have gotten into quite a bit recently. I have a huge interest in herbalism and all things natural healing, so this podcast seemed to fall out of the sky and land in my phone, and it was the best finding of the year, I would say, for myself. So I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. It was so much fun to have a conversation. Katja and Rin are both amazing people and really inspirational to talk to. So I learned so much in this conversation. I hope you get something out of it as well. Katja and Rin have been teaching together since 2009. They are focused on making high quality herbal education accessible for all learning styles, with curriculum grounded in personal experience, critical thinking, and whole person approaches. They prioritize personal relationships with students so that no one feels like they are learning in isolation. Whether you want to learn herbalism as a hobby, a career, or a calling, they can give you the tools to integrate herbal practices directly into your life. For me personally, I love learning about herbalism so I can work with it for my own self-care, and as Katja and Rin describe it, as first aid. So I think it's really important that we all gain some kind of foundational understanding about the impact of herbs and their healing benefits. So I really hope you enjoy this episode. Sink into it, go and check out Katja and Rin, go and check out the podcast, and enjoy learning all about how herbs and humans were made to go together. Let's dive in. Enjoy. Welcome everyone, welcome back to Madison Mindset, the podcast. I'm very excited today because I'm sitting with two superstars in my eyes. I've been absolutely obsessed with their podcast for the last few months, and I just had to see if they'd come on and join me because it's amazing. Welcome, Katja and Rin. How are you both doing?
Hi, we're so excited to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Happy to see you.
Amazing. I'm so excited. I'm literally looking at herbal superstars. It's incredible. I've been so interested in herbalism, but every time I go to learn something, I go, oh, wow, it's too much. Can't even, like, where do you start? You need all the herbs, and apparently there's way more than just the ones you have in your kitchen. And it's like, I never have the right herbs. So I'm so glad that you put your podcast out into the world. So thank you for that service. It's beautiful.
You're welcome.
Absolutely, yeah. We're always really excited when people find us through there, and that way they get a sense to kind of hear how we talk and the kind of things we're interested in, and what our flow is like. We teach primarily, but we want people to be there because they not just because they want herbs, but because we make sense to them.
Mm.
And the podcast is a great way for us to be like, listen, try it before you buy it. Come and see the guy.
Yeah.
Or
I
don't
love
buy
that.
it. If
Don't
if
even.
budget is tight, then just learn it here.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's a beautiful service. I'd love to start by getting you guys to introduce yourselves individually and why you started herbalism, why it was such a big thing for you. It's probably a big story, but let's begin.
Yeah.
Like a lot of herbalists have stories of like my great grandmother and this and that and whatever. I do not have that story. Um, I lived overseas a lot in high school and college, and I lived in places that had tea traditions, and of course, like in the States, we did not. I grew up in the South, and so there was sweet tea or like sun tea, but there was none of this like, European tea time kind of thing, like none of that.
Mm.
And so when I came back to the States, it turns out that you couldn't at that time buy tea. Like there was like one European import store in Harvard Square that you could go and pay like an arm and a tea kettle to buy like a little tin of like good tea. And so I was like, this is way too expensive for like a just got out of college budget. I have got to be able to make this stuff myself. And so that's why I started studying herbalism. over time though, it grew and grew, and I had a lot of health problems, and like one at a time I started trying to deal with them herbally. It didn't start that way though. It did not start glamorous. It was just I wanted cheaper tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Yeah,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yeah. To know your ingredients and to know what was in there
Yeah.
and why and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
My story is I met a girl.
As
It's
all good
Katja.
stories start, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I met her through friends, through a social circle. I had been living in Boston for some years, and then suddenly one day, everybody I knew in this crowd was suddenly like, "Katya's coming back," and I was like, "I thought I knew everybody. Who are you talking about?" She had moved up to Vermont for some years and like had a whole farm there and everything.
Mhm.
But she moved back to Boston, and I met her through people and started spending time together. And I was like, "What's with all these jars in your closet? You know, what's going on?" And she started teaching me herbalism, and that was pretty much it for
Yeah.
me.
That's amazing.
And now we're married.
Oh, that's amazing. Oh, congratulations. That's such a herbal love story. That's beautiful in every
Right?
way.
Yeah,
In every way. That's fantastic. So, I would love to know a little bit more. And for the listeners who have never heard of herbalism and like, what are you talking about? What is herbalism? Like, where does it come from? Why should we pay attention to it? I'd love to know.
sure, yeah. So we're from the U.S. and so we say herbalism, and I hope that everybody will cope with us doing that. That's fine. Um,
Yeah, we don't have H's here. We
we
just
we lost
Yeah.
them
they don't
somewhere.
exist. Yeah.
Don't worry about them.
Yeah,
It's rare that we actually say any other, it's usually the Australians that leave out all the letters. So I'm happy with
skip over a few of them. It's fine. Yeah.
that.
Um, Herbalism is what happens when people and plants are near each other. I mean, it's as fundamental as cooking, or as like, weaving things into cord and baskets and stuff like that. People need to survive in the world, and they need to eat, they need to carry things around, they need to heal wounds and fight infection. And plants have been here longer than we have, and so they're really good at a lot of those things. Herbalism is not one tradition. It's a lot of different traditions and a lot of different practices that all kind of get grouped together under that term today. In the past, people would have said, well, this is cooking and this is medicine and this is art, and this is entertainment and things like that. In the modern world, we have herbalism as like an idea of a whole separate practice, a separate category or subject of study, but it's really integrated into everybody's life already. One thing we do with a lot of our students when they're first starting is to get them to identify the herbs that already live in their world. If you chew on ginger tablets or candies when you feel nausea, you've got herbalism. If you drink coffee, that's an herb that counts, right? Or green
Yes.
tea,
Excellent.
or other things like that. Yeah, I mean, coffee's a powerful herb. We could do a whole hour on just that, but
He's done many hours on coffee.
yeah.
Fair enough.
But yeah, I feel like the best place to start is where people already have plants in their life now. If it's house plants, if it's spices you cook with, if it's herbal remedies from your grandparents, that's where it starts. And even the most advanced and complex kind of clinical practice is rooted in those things, and at least the way we practice comes back to those things or starts in those things, even when we're trying to solve a complex health problem. Let's get herbs in your food. Let's get herbs, on your skin, in your in
Mhm.
your air that you breathe, like all over you.
I think one thing that's really important about the concept of herbalism, and this has been on my mind a lot lately as things are polarizing more and more into like camps around science and not science and like whatever. Um, and also because we're talking to you in Australia, and outside of the US, people held their traditions longer. Not all the traditions that came here got held onto or got remembered in quite the right way. It's not, of course, not always true, but and so I like my ideas around how to talk about what herbalism is have been shifting a little. Um, to simply just saying herbalism is just uh healthcare. It's just healthcare. Like before we knew what a microscope was, we knew what plants were. And before we understood what a molecule was and how to like isolate things with chemical processes, we were still working with many of those same chemicals, just in a more crude fashion. And humans have been doing science throughout all of history. Humans, like every time that we try something and say, I wonder what will happen if I try this, and then we try it and then we say, wow, that was interesting. I'm going to try it again and see if the same thing happens. That's science. And so, like, these things don't actually need to be at odds with each other. Um, Herbalism is just tools that we've had longer than we have had microscopes. But there was a period of time when microscopes were first invented. All of the herbalists used microscopes. They
Right.
were like, these were not competing tools. They were tools that was like people practicing these traditions saw a new tool and said, ooh, I'm going to try that. That could probably help me.
Still happens today, you know?
Yeah.
People who are getting interested in things like, I don't know, the first thing that comes to mind is like the MTHFR genetic variant, you know, and the way that that can change how people's physiology functions and the way that they metabolize or process various things, including food, including drugs, and including herbs.
Mhm.
And so that's like very, very new information, you know, 5, 10 years, something like that. But some herbalists have found that relevant to the way they work and the kind of herbs
Mhm.
they recommend to people. So that's like a process or a connection that's been happening the whole time, and we shouldn't expect that to change anytime soon. It's again,
Yeah.
it's humans and all of their knowledge and all of their existing tools looking at plants that they know or that they don't know yet, or that somebody else knows and they want to learn more about, and trying to find all the ways they can to do that.
So like just like any tangible item that you maybe own, just because it's old doesn't mean that it needs to be replaced. Some things that you have that are old are like your favorite thing, right? Whether it is like your grandmother's teacup or your like mom, I have this plate that my mom always put brownies on, and we had brownies a lot when I was a kid. So she was gonna just put it in a yard sale because to her it was just a plate, and I was like, you can't get rid of that. That's the brownie plate, you know? And so sometimes old things are worth holding on to. They're still good, they still work, they still whatever. And sometimes new things are great and helpful, and we want them and we incorporate them into our lives.
Mm.
And so I feel like, herbalism is these things, we have this separation between, we can't legally say herbalism is medical care,
Right. Yeah, at least in the
legally,
US.
right? In the US, we can't legally say that. But in a sense, this is just one continuum
Right.
of actually all the same desire, which is to care for people who are uncomfortable.
Mm.
Hmm. It's so interesting. And would you both say that, because what I've heard is, human beings have been very disconnected from the natural world, so that all this knowledge that, why people would say, my grandmother, my great grandmother used to do this, or, this is an ancient remedy, whatever it is. Would you say that we have been disconnected from it and that's why it's so challenging for us to get into? Or is it just somewhere we haven't looked? What's your opinion on that?
I would just start by saying that the world is big and there are lots of people in it, and there's lots of
Mhm.
different cultures and lots of different habits of life and things like that. There are many people on this planet who have a direct, connection to a long, long tradition, and and there wasn't a break, or it wasn't lost in the way. Here in the US, a lot of us white people talk that way. We talk like, yeah, there was a tradition in my family line at some point, but it broke sometime after they came over to Ellis Island, and then we got, Americanized and like culturally flattened, and yeah, a lot of stuff was lost. So for people that look like me and Katya and live where we live, yeah, there has been a lot of disconnection. And you see that, I think, manifested in the hunger people have for reconnecting, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I think it's also really important, though, to recognize that it wasn't lost to everyone.
Yeah.
Of course, throughout the world, there are places where they never even tried to lose the tradition. Like they more gracefully incorporated new tools as they came. But in the United States, there are many places where herbal tradition never was broken. In many immigrant communities and also in the African American diaspora, those traditions were not necessarily lost. They were not necessarily broken. And then when we look at like the Appalachian region, so that's like the mountain chain that goes along the east coast of the United States. Um, and that's a place with a really rich history, but also a lot of poverty.
Yeah.
And so that region also really never lost its root work, its herbal medicine traditions because most people couldn't afford to go to medical doctors there.
Or they just weren't around anyway.
Right,
Yeah.
or they just didn't exist in those areas because they were areas that were kind of like left behind. Actually, I don't even need quotes around that. They were like intentionally left behind by um, capitalism. Sorry.
By the powers that take, yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's really important, especially in the US. I'm not really certain how this plays out in Australia, but especially in the US, like kind of middle class white America have these ideas of like, oh, well, all of our traditions were lost. And it's valuable to acknowledge that yes, our traditions, many of us, we did lose our traditions. Um, but on the other hand, not all traditions were lost. Like some people did hold their traditions still, and um, we can just acknowledge that different people had different experiences.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. It's so interesting. So I've heard that a lot, and I don't know if it's an Australian thing or if it's, people who listen to the podcast will say, "Oh, I just feel so disconnected from nature. I don't know what any plant is. I don't know what." And
Mhm.
That for
I
sure, yeah.
think herbalism's often, from what I've heard, is tied to foraging quite a lot. People think herbalism, foraging, you need to find the herbs. And I go for bushwalks and things, and my partner will point out herbs and go, I've heard of that one, that does this. Or this smells like rosemary. I bet you this would be a great like seasoning thing. And I'm just like, it all looks the same. I've got no idea. There's probably
Yeah.
medicine everywhere. In Australia, we are taught from the indigenous people that there is medicine everywhere. And there's one
Right.
particular plant that my father uses, and he got it from his sister, and that was passed on a little bit. But it's this amazing herb that literally, it's called bush lettuce. Or there's a fancy name for it, but we call it bush lettuce. And you dry it out, drink it, and if you're anxious or got any pain in your body, you don't care anymore. It's not like you're high. It's not a high thing, but it's like you just, it's like a softening relaxer. If you're in any kind of pain, physical or mental pain, emotional pain, you're just like, what was that thing I was worried about? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh well. It's
That
just,
makes
it's
sense.
amazing.
Mm.
That makes sense. That might actually be a Lactuca species, which those are, I mean, even cultivated lettuce is like Lactuca sativa, but there's around us, Lactuca cereola is a wild spiky lettuce.
Mm,
And like you say, it's got a sedative effect. It helps you to sleep. It relieves pain. It's a handy plant for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah.
There is medicine all around. There is food all around. There is delight all around in the plant world. And I think that you're right that a lot of people don't have that recognition for plants the same way they do for brands. Like you might have seen these memes, right?
Yes.
Where it's like one side is a whole set of brand logos and the other side is a bunch of leaf shapes. And it's like, how many can you identify, right? And it's it's funny because it's just a reflection of where we spend our time, where our attention is driven, right? People recognize brands because they see them all the time, because they're important to them, because it's something they work with frequently. If they were out in the woods all day or out in the bush all day, they would know those plants better.
Hmm.
Even if they didn't know their names or if they didn't know all of their medicinal uses, they would know them on a level of personal connection.
Hmm.
And we absolutely encourage anybody interested in herbalism to go with that.
Yeah.
But there are some issues around foraging. So
I before you say that, I wanted to add one thing there, which is that um a lot of people have a lot of fear of plants.
right.
They're afraid to try something. And listen, that's valid if you are just out and you're not certain that you can accurately ID a plant.
Yeah.
That's very valid. But even when it is something that is like purchased, there's often fear around just trying the tea. I don't know what this is going to do. Will it hurt me? Will it make me weird? Will it whatever? And I think that also is a reflection of that disconnection of just no longer recognizing. But like we can go into a drugstore and see the Tylenol or the ibuprofen or the like whatever, all the different things that they have there, and the Benadryl, I don't know, like whatever. And everybody knows what those things do. But we don't feel comfortable with plants, and we don't feel like it's safe to try something that isn't available at the grocery store. It's okay because lots of herbs are available at the grocery store.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
but so I think that also is part of that disconnect, is just that fear. But the thing is that it is literally just like the brands and the leaves. It's the same. Like, you're not afraid to go to the drugstore and just try the allergy medicine because you've had it with your runny nose. But like, we're afraid to try like nettles because, I don't know, that's a plant. It could be poisonous. Maybe it'll kill me,
Mm.
you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, people worry, you know. So when it comes to foraging, it can be a really great way to connect with nature and to feel that closeness to it that's valuable, you know. Even above and beyond the like physical action of the plant on your physiology, you know, the medicine of it or the chemistry of it. So there's a ton of value in that. As foraging and as wildcrafting, which is kind of like it means foraging for herbs, I guess.
Yeah, it's like a specialized word for
Yeah.
herbs. Yeah.
Okay.
That's picked up in popularity. I think that the COVID spike drove some of that, at least here, because people were like, I should be alone, I should be outside. Well, let's look at some plants, you know? Um, but anyway, it's been on an upward tick for a while,
Well,
and
there's a lot of influencers that are like foragers, and they
yeah,
have these
Yes.
social media accounts about foraging.
yeah.
Yeah.
It looks
And
like
that's all.
fun. Yeah.
I mean, it looks like fun.
It can also be a lot of effort. Like if you've never dug up a burdock root, you're going to need a shovel and maybe a pickaxe and a lot of time and patience, you know, to get
Maybe
it
a
all up out of
friend.
there. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Wow.
really in there.
It's actually worth saying, just as a side comment, that sometimes people think of like wildcrafting as a way to get free medicine. It's free by money, but your time, your energy, those are also finite resources.
Yeah.
And sometimes people underestimate how much of that it's going to require. But there can be issues of overharvesting. And especially for plants that are like endangered or threatened or at risk, these are like grades of ecological sustainability.
Mhm.
We're very, very hesitant to encourage anybody to go and wildcraft for those. The
Wow.
best thing
Okay.
is to start wildcrafting for weeds, right?
Mhm.
And invasive plants
Yeah, invasives are
because
the perfect ones.
they're abundant, because nobody's going to yell at you for digging them up, right? You're not going to get in trouble. Because many of them do have great medicine or other positive attributes to them, and we're definitely not going to run out. Yeah.
Yeah. I also feel like forage for relationship, like forage for finding the plant in its natural surroundings and then meditate with it. Like, just hang out with it, observe it, but don't take it. And then, like, maybe you can take some seeds and grow them in a place where you like steward the land, or maybe you can just get it at a plant center and grow it yourself. I really advocate for growing over foraging, because first off, when you grow plants, you appreciate people who grow plants, and you appreciate the price of store-bought plants.
Yeah.
When you try to grow enough of a plant for you to make into tea, then you start to realize that's why it's so expensive to buy good quality stuff, because it's actually a ton of work.
Mm.
And so if somebody wants to start off growing a plant, catnip and calendula are my two favorites,
Hmm.
because they are like, almost nobody's allergic to either one.
Yeah.
And they're abundant. If you just have one bucket, and you like, it doesn't even have to be a pretty pot, whatever, it can be a bucket, it's fine. And you grow one plant in there, you will get a lot of calendula flowers or a lot of catnip. So you get a lot for a plant that is pretty fault tolerant and patient with you as a person who's learning to grow plants.
Mm.
But um but yeah, like, there have been people, there's a plant, I don't think it grows in Australia, but it grows in the US, called ghost pipe. And it became very popular because it can help with anxiety, and it can help with like overstimulation. Now
Mm.
listen, there are lots of plants who can do that. It doesn't have to be ghost pipe. But ghost pipe is a plant that's at risk, and you have to handle it in a very specific way to make the medicine.
Yeah.
And so people think, oh, I know how to identify ghost pipe. I'm going to go harvest a lot and make money selling it. But then they don't process it properly. And then somebody said they had like 50 pounds of dried ghost pipe, which is like, I don't know, they like took all of it from an entire forest or something to get 50 pounds.
Tiny little thing. When it dries, it loses like 98% of its weight.
Yeah. It doesn't weigh anything. And so the point is, when it dries, you also can't use it anymore.
Yeah.
It has to be tinctured fresh, like immediately. Like you pick it, you put it right into the alcohol. And so I like that's a big problem with foraging. Okay, so ghost pipe is probably not a plant that is applicable for y'all, but you can think of other plants that are like this, right? That are like susceptible, like they're at risk, they're like struggling to survive because of habitat destruction, because of climate change, because of whatever. And then somebody goes and just like picks all of it, and it's not even usable because they didn't handle it properly. And so so foraging, I don't think it's never appropriate, but gardening is always appropriate. And you can forage just to take pictures and for the joy and delight of seeing a plant in nature and for building that connection. And that's just, I think, a little better.
Yeah. I mean, the like overarching idea here is just you need to know the plant before you go grabbing at it, right? Like there are some plants that are really, really giving and renewable in that sense, you know. So like a pine tree.
Catnip is one of those. Yeah.
Catnip is really giving. A pine tree, or I guess, you know, a eucalyptus tree. If we're going to go and we're going to gather the needles or the leaves and we're going to make something out of those, we're not going to harm that organism at all, right? We can gather a basket full of what we're looking for, take it home, have all we needed for the month or the year, and the plant isn't damaged in any particular way.
I mean, assuming that it's a large, mature, strong plant, tree. Yeah. I mean, here it's really good because the pines are so tall that you can't take anything off of them. But in the windstorms, like a big branch will come down and that's your pine. Like you get all the needles off of that and then perfect, you have a lot. So that's ideal.
So there's just a lot of variability between species, like what they can handle and what kind of conditions they can grow in and how much of a particular niche they need to grow at all, like the ghost pipe thing.
Or like, was this a really special year that had the perfect kind of weather for this plant to grow really strong, but you don't know that next year is going to be a drought year and the plant is maybe going to almost die out. And so it can't actually handle the pressure of harvesting. There's just a lot of things to consider. And if you think about it, it's really just like humans, you know, like if you have a friend and you're just always asking for favors, but you never show up with a cake, like eventually your friend can't handle being harvested anymore, you know? And so if you think about a plant more like you think about a human, then you realize like, oh, this plant actually has plans. Like this plant has a life that it wants to live. And I could be a part of that life or I could not be a part of that life. But if I'm going to be a part of that life, I should be a very polite house guest and only take a little bit and not stress the plant out, you know? Yeah.
Wow. I absolutely love it.
Okay, good. I don't want to make anybody feel sad about foraging. Like, please forage. Use your phone to take lots of beautiful pictures.
Yeah.
And then sit down and have a nice meditation or do some yoga with your plant or whatever.
No, I love this so much because it's so important to understand what we're doing. And like, even for myself, like I've seen like so many people out there in pretty dresses foraging with pretty baskets, and it makes you go like, oh, I just want to do that, you know. And I think people just don't understand. Like I was always worried about identifying the plant and being like, well, yeah, I could eat something that kills me and that wouldn't be fun. So I was always worried about that. Yeah, that's a huge problem. But it's just so important to have this conversation because I think people are getting more and more into the idea, especially people who listen to our podcast, right, around this world that are interested in natural healing and mindfulness and, you know, all of these things. It's so important to keep in mind like the safety and security of nature and of yourself and having that respect, because I haven't heard it explained that way. And I think it's so valuable that people hear that, because things that get trendy on social media often destroy the reality of a situation. So I'm really glad that we could have that conversation, because I also felt pressured to go and forage. I was like, oh, I need to go and figure out how to forage. And now I'm not stressed about that at all. So I'm really happy that we could have that conversation, because the only plant I can identify is the bush lettuce, and it looks like a common weed. that people pull
Yeah.
out, and they pull it out of their gardens all day every day when they're gardening. They keep pulling it out and
Huh.
throwing it away. And it's like, no, that's a good weed. We love that one. Like,
Right.
take that
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
But see, that's also the perfect way to forage because then you just go to all your neighbors and you say, "Can I weed your garden for you?" And they will be like,
It's
"That
excellent
sounds
foraging.
great."
Yeah.
And then you just take all the bush lettuce. And
Yep.
here the plant that is called ground ivy. And some people call it creeping Charlie or alehoof. It's actually possible you have it in Australia because that's like one of the colonizer plants,
Yeah.
that came
Yep.
from Europe. And um, it grows like crazy in people's gardens, and they're always weeding it out. But it's also such an important herb in terms of like lymphatic movement in the head. So if you have a sinus infection or an ear infection, or also just if your brain is really stagnant and you're feeling like, because there's lymph in your head too. Well, technically it's glymph with a
Lymph.
G, but like it's like still the same kind of fluid that needs to move around. And your brain can get stagnant too. So this is like such a fantastic herb, and you really can't buy it. You
No.
really have to harvest it somewhere,
Yeah.
but it grows in everybody's gardens. So you just tell all your friends, I want to come when you weed your garden, and then you take all the ground ivy with you, or in your case, the bush lettuce.
Yeah.
Perfect. I really want to know what the real name for bush lettuce is because it's a very old plant in Australia. It's used by all the Aboriginal people. So it would be interesting to know what the technical name is because I'm pretty sure that's just the
Well,
nickname.
yeah, I will definitely look it up as soon as we're done here
Yeah.
Beautiful,
because now
beautiful.
I'm very interested also.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
it's my
I know,
favorite for sure.
I know almost nothing about Australian plants. Like we hear about eucalyptus. After that, I'm stuck. You know?
Yeah.
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 I mean, I know that y'all certainly have a lot of European plants that came over. I'm sure that you have like plantain, not the banana, but the green spiny leaf. I'm certain that you have that because that has
It's
traveled
pretty much
everywhere
everywhere.
that the
Yeah.
ships went.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Dandelions, I presume.
Yep.
Dandelions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably burdock, probably mugwort, things like that. So there
Oh yeah,
there
I'm sure you
she's
guys
got
have
mugwort,
mugwort.
yeah.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
there's plants like that are world travelers now, they follow people, they go where people go and people go all over. So there
Hmm.
there are a lot of plants that have become like global citizens at this point.
That's
And there
amazing.
are
Yeah.
plants that just live in all kinds of different places. There's a plant called Solomon seal that I had a Korean friend, and she was like, "Oh, you're an herbalist," and she was telling me all about this plant, and I was like, "You know what that sounds like? That sounds like Solomon seal." But I was like, "Oh, that like I don't think that plant grows in Korea." Oh no, it doesn't. It's like super popular.
Mhm.
And so it's just like that's also true with Chinese plants. Also, many of the plants that grow in China also grow in the US,
Hmm.
and we're not like they're considered native here. I mean, people have been moving between the continents for much longer than we give them credit for.
Yeah.
Um, but they're not considered invasive or like naturalized or anything. They're considered native here and native in China too, or like wherever else. So
Yeah.
a lot of times, yeah, the plants are the same, even though nobody put them there on purpose.
Hmm.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? They're so intelligent, kind of following people around. It's like their own little,
Mhm.
yeah, it's just
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
and I mean, humans make a particular set of environmental conditions, especially like packed soil. So like the plantago, the plantain that she was talking about a minute ago, that one, it loves to be where people are. You see it growing on walking trails and like bike paths and stuff like that, and it can handle all the traffic all day long, but it likes the kind of compressed earth that we create just by being people.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Or in a city, in a city, the environment is hot, dry, and salty. And a lot of the plants that can live in cities are also plants that would have grown on like rocky cliffs on the coastline,
Hmm.
where it was a similar type of exposure. And it's the like plants are native not to a geographical location, they're native to a biosphere, to conditions of sunlight and water and salt and soil quality and things like that. And wherever they find those, they're going to grow and thrive. Yeah.
Amazing. I love it. You guys make it sound like humans are not destructive on this earth, which is nice because that's another thing I hear a lot. It's nice to hear that, like, yeah, there's, it is all right. Like some plants love the compact soil, It's like, okay,
Yeah.
it makes it sound a bit nicer.
Yeah. Well, we have the power to create environments where many things can grow. We like all not all stewardship is leaving stuff alone, right? Or not all conservation is leaving stuff alone. That model of conservation is pretty firmly established, but it's also like really validly challenged. This idea that there were these virgin forests in the North and South Americas before the white people showed up, but they weren't. They were heavily shaped by human intervention, especially
They were
things.
they were managed.
Yeah. Where we live, up in the Northeast region, there would have been controlled burns for, millennia that people would do, and they would also, maintain trails and clear out things. But the environment that the Europeans walked into wasn't naturally occurring, quote unquote, unless you include humans as part of nature,
Hmm.
which is probably the better way to do it.
And
But
if you think about, do y'all have beavers in Australia?
No, never seen a beaver.
No.
They don't even
Okay,
seem
well,
real.
no, they're real. They, they're like just platypuses, but in North America.
We never see
Um,
platypus anyway. They're gone. Well, they're not gone, but
I,
they don't
well,
come around people at all.
no, okay,
Never see
well,
them.
beaver beavers, you often like you have to be very still and quiet to see a beaver,
Mm.
but you will see evidence of beavers in lots of places.
yeah,
And they also were hunted nearly to extinction.
right.
But then they've been coming back. But it turns out, people get mad about beavers because they cut down trees and flood areas and stuff like that. But actually, beavers are amazing at wetland management
Mm.
and water management in general. And they're way better at it than humans are, which doesn't mean that humans are not good at anything. It's just in this particular case, beavers are really good at water management. And beavers can prevent like forest fires, and beavers can prevent drought, and beavers can all this kind of stuff. And so the places where they hunted beavers out, now they're starting to reintroduce them because they are part of the ecosystem. And so when we just think about how can we be part of the ecosystem instead of like moving mindlessly through the world that we live in, like
Yeah, or
we
trying,
we don't have to be destructive.
right.
Mm.
Our impact, yes, okay, we have an impact, but all creatures have an impact, but that impact can also be collaborative with the nature that we live in.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, even in the middle of any like metropolis city, you're gonna find wildlife, You're gonna find foxes and you're gonna find raccoons and bats and like plants growing out of the sidewalk, and it's all there. We just sort of decide not to count that as nature.
Mm.
We decide to draw this firm line and say like there's nature over there, there's civilization over here, and never the twain shall meet. But it's never been like that. And the more we believe it is, the more problems we create.
Mm.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. I absolutely love the perspective that you're putting into this because I'm all about the mindset shifts and I've had a big one right now. So that's amazing. I would love to,
Yay!
yeah, I would love to get into self-care to some degree because I love talking about that. And if someone who's listening to this is going, yeah, I'm definitely not going to have as many jars as you guys do. I'm definitely don't I'm not going to be able to do this, but I do want to take care of myself and get a better understanding of what herbs to use. And I think people know about, your turmeric and your ginger and things like that for, inflammation. And I think that's getting to the point where people know that. But I would love to know if you guys have a few suggestions that are really easy that anyone can do, whether it's a tea or just some, I know you use the term first aid a lot. So even if there's something that if everyone could know this thing or these few things, it would make a big difference. Like, what are those things? I would love to know.
This is a popular herbalist party game. Um, and it's like usually we call it like the desert island game, right? Like if you were stranded on a desert island, which like five herbs or whatever would you take with you? And those were all the only herbs you can have, right? So like so it's funny because like all herbalists kind of have an answer for this. And so my answer is ginger and chamomile. I think that I can solve nearly any, well, I can improve nearly any problem with ginger and chamomile. And
Amazing. Yeah.
If that's all you had, that would help you with anxiety, but also depression, and also sluggishness,
Mm,
physical and emotional,
right.
and also crampiness, and also wound care. Okay, that's the chamomile, not the ginger, because ginger would hurt if you put it like, well, it would probably sting a little bit.
Yeah.
Um, and hold on, I interrupted my list there. Digestive discomfort, muscle spasms, like from a sports injury or something like that.
Right. Right.
Um, and probably more that, oh, headaches for
Yeah.
sure.
So just to interject, right? Somebody who doesn't know anything about herbs might be like, that's a crazy list. What are you talking about? Like, these problems are not all in the same part of the body. They're not all the same kind of tissue. Like, how could anything touch all of those at once, right?
Right.
So when we think about herbs, we think about their qualities and their actions. It's like the first set of things you want to know. So for instance, ginger is warming, it's a little bit drying, and it's relaxant to the body. So
Like really strongly relax or effectively relaxing.
yeah. So any place where there's what we'd consider a cold pattern of things slowing down, getting stuck, not functioning as effectively as they should be, they're slow, they're quiet. We want to wake them up. Ginger can help us to do that. That's most obvious in digestion. You know, you eat food, it kind of sits heavy in your stomach, takes a while to move through you, feel a lot of discomfort in your belly while it's happening, right? You take ginger, it heats up your digestion. It helps you to break your food down more completely, moves things through you more smoothly, not
Mhm.
necessarily faster, but smoothly, right? You feel more comfortable. And
And
at
then,
the, and then on another part of your body, if you have like a tense, tight muscle with some stuck blood, like a big bruise, you know, you can see under there, it's uncomfortable. You take ginger, put it on that. It warms that up. It moves the blood around. It releases tension that's impeding circulation, and it allows the body to heal that part faster. So,
it's really, if you think about like a heating pad
yeah.
or a hot water bottle, if you put that in an area that is sore and crampy, after a little while, your skin will get red.
Mm.
Part of the reason that it helps relax tension or spasms in the muscles is because it is increasing the flow of blood to that area. That's what happens. That's why it's turning red, because more blood is going there. And so you can think about ginger as like a hot water bottle, but it's on the inside of you. And it's
Yeah.
moving the blood around.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So this is just sort of a way to understand like herbs can act in many different parts of your body. They don't do one thing, and maybe for modern people it helps to know that they're not one chemical. There's not one
Right.
like active ingredient, quote unquote, in St. John's wort or chamomile or ginger or any other plant. Even plants that have a very powerful chemical, like coffee, right, where it
Mm-hmm.
has caffeine, that's not the only thing in coffee. And one way to understand that is that if you take coffee and you take tea, they affect you a little bit differently, right? Coffee is a little bit more likely to amp up digestive movement, maybe even get you some belly rumbles or stuff like that. Tea is less likely to overstimulate you and more likely to help you to stay focused and centered on your work. And it's because like the coffee, apart from caffeine, has some components that stimulate liver activity and digestive movement very directly. Whereas the green tea has some components that actually calm you down and help you to focus. So I always say, like, if I'm going to go and do a bunch of yard work or heavy labor, I'm going to drink coffee. If I'm going to do like write a paper or do a bunch of research, I'm going to drink tea. They both have the powerful compound caffeine, but everything else in them shifts the way that they work for you, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So that again, to just draw back, herbs can operate on many different parts of your body at the same time. They can be helpful when applied in different ways for different problems.
Mm-hmm.
They're not really the way we think of drugs that like the ideal drug is like one active chemical, maybe some binders to make a capsule you can swallow, right? But one active chemical going to one point in your body and doing one job.
Mm-hmm.
Herbs are a thousand chemicals doing a thousand different things that can overlap and that can touch different areas.
Also, to make it a little more confusing, herbs don't always work the same way for every person, because the flip side of herbs being a thousand different chemicals is that humans are also many different things.
Yeah.
Mm.
But we can categorize humans in a pretty simple way. For example, if I were to ask you, do you tend to run hot or cold? You probably have an answer for that,
Yeah,
right?
cold.
Yeah, right? Like if you're the first person to put on a sweater or the last person. In fact, you don't even own a sweater, right? And then if you think about, well, am I damp or dry? And for some people, that's a little bit more challenging.
Not for me though.
Not for me
He's
either, I know.
right. He's really dry and I run damp. And sometimes it's simple. You can just say, oh, this person has a tendency towards holding extra fluid in their body, even if it isn't edema, right? You can just be a person who tends to be puffy without having full-blown edema. Versus you can be a person who is just sort of always a little bit dehydrated and like always kind of has to remember to drink water, right? And so, okay, if you imagine that, that's a really good example. Well, hot and cold is too. And then the other one is tense and lax. If you're a person who is always really tensed up,
Mhm.
or are you a person who is just like very loose all the time,
Mm.
like just a lot of laxity in your body, right? And like as a yoga teacher, you probably can even think about students who are like, oh, that's a tense one and that's a lax one, right? Like you
Yes,
can see
yeah,
it
yeah.
in people.
Hmm.
Mhm.
Okay, so that's enough categories. If we take those 6 categories, by the way, those categories are the foundation of things that people may have heard of, like in Ayurveda, the dosha.
Hmm.
Um, the you can distill it down to like these 6 categories are the least common denominator, the lowest common denominator for the doshas, or in TCM, the like, you'll hear things called metal or you'll hear them called wind or whatever.
Yeah.
Um,
Or the like ancient Western systems of the four humors,
yep.
sanguine and phlegmatic and all of those.
Right.
Yeah.
So all those systems are built on top of these 6 categories. And if you are very familiar with these 6 categories, you can actually communicate with anybody about a traditional system that you're not familiar with, because even if you don't know the words, like you don't know what the doshas are and you don't know that what pitta is or kapha or whatever, it doesn't matter because they know what qualities that has. And so if you say something is hot and damp or hot and cold, they can match it up with, right? Okay, so if you think about a person who has a lot of dryness versus a person who has a lot of dampness, and then you think about an herb that is very astringent, like, well, for us, that would be uva ursi, or I don't, there's like so many,
Agrimony, oak bark. You got oaks over there?
yeah, maybe.
Mm,
Or
some, yeah, they're here. They're here sometimes, not a lot.
anything with tannins, like in red wine, has tannins in it.
Oh yeah.
Um, even black tea has
Black tea.
tannins.
Black tea is a great
Like
astringent.
if you let the black tea sit in there for a really long time, like half an hour, if you let it sit in
Oh
there,
yeah, yeah. Mm.
some people will be like, I cannot drink this. And I will be like, this is delicious because I have a lot of dampness in my body. And so drinking something that is extra drying actually feels really good to me.
Hmm.
But for a person who's already dry, that would feel extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Or for a person who runs really hot,
Hmm.
taking a ton of ginger probably wouldn't feel very good. But for a person who's cold all the time, taking ginger is like, ooh, I'm finally getting a little bit warmer, you know?
So this does get back to the desert island thing, right? So like it would be difficult. We could try to do it to get 5 or 6 herbs for anybody who might show up on our island, right? If we were to do that, we would need to try to cover our bases. I need something to warm people up, to cool them down, to bring moisture, to take away dampness, right? All of those elements. But if you knew you were going to the desert island and you could choose the herbs you bring with you, it's best to figure out what's going to work well for you personally,
Mhm.
right? Do I need something to warm up my digestion? Do I need something to cool down my heart because it gets really hot and agitated and I can grab my motherwort and I can take that and that helps to like release my tension, cool my heart down and I can feel better. Um, so, for me, it would be great on my desert island if I had some seaweeds with me. And hey, maybe they grow in the water there, right? Because
Mm.
seaweed is cooling and moistening and relaxing pretty much universally. And so as somebody who runs dry and tense and usually on the hot side, it matches my body's needs really, really well. Yeah.
Going back to the ginger and chamomile, though, if you take those 2 herbs, and combine them, because ginger is not heating, right? I mean,
Chamomile.
chamomile is
Chamamole's
not
not
heating.
heating.
And so if you think, okay, I only have 2 herbs to do all the things I need to do, And you think about modern humans, most of us are tense even if we are not tense.
Yeah.
Right? Like I am a person who runs lax, like I have a lot of laxity in my body, but everybody has too much stress. And that creates tension even if we are not a person who is just naturally really wiry and tense.
Hmm.
And so if you think about that and you think, okay, only can have two herbs to do everything I have to do. Well, if I have to work with a person who is already really hot, then I'll probably just work with the chamomile for them. But if I have to work with a person who is really cold, I'll put them together. And basically, the only thing you can't do with those two is, oh, somebody needs a lot of astringent. Okay, well, they're not astringent, so we can't do that.
Yeah.
But you could get a lot of work done with those two plants alone. Plus, they're really well suited to my own
To
body
you,
in
yeah. So
particular.
you think it would be perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
What would your two really be today? Right? And also these answers change, right?
I can imagine they do, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I'm gonna need a bitter. My best friend is Centauri. This is this herb called Centauri, Centaurium erythraea. It's the Latin on that one, and it's really, really bitter. But it was one of the first herbs that I really worked with when I was first learning herbs from Katja. And there's a practice we ask a lot of our students to do, which is to choose an herb and make a quart of tea of it every day for at least a week, but better a whole month.
Mm-hmm.
So I did that with Centauri, and it was like a complete overhaul of my digestive system. And probably other benefits for me as well. This herb is cooling, it's a little drying, it's a little tonifying. So I'll often combine it with some moistening, relaxing herbs when I drink it. Like say catnip and linden together makes a really
Mm-hmm.
nice little formula. But Centauri is like where I go when my guts are bugging me. And over the course of my life, I've had a bunch of different troubles in the GI tract. So I'm very attached to that plant. Even though most people taste it and they're like, why would you ever consume this at all? Because it's just like straight bitter, really nothing else on top of that. It's great stuff. I feel really good about it. So if it was just me, I would bring Centauri and I would bring catnip. Yeah.
See, I would like to propose blue vervain
You've been on
and
this kick lately.
catnip.
Yeah.
So blue vervain is also super bitter,
Mhm.
but it is also mentally relaxant,
Yeah.
especially when people feel like um, they feel like they're under pressure to like be perfect.
To be
That's
perfect. Yeah.
right. Like that's not really, but like when you feel like there's a lot I want to do in the world. There's like a lot of work that I want to do, and I need to do it really well. And it all needed to be done yesterday. Okay, well, the first two were probably true, but the third one is not true. It didn't really have to be done yesterday. And like, and you start to pile that stuff on you.
To
And can
ratchet
you
up the
feel the
tension.
tension even just happening? Like as you're like, no, it's not good enough. No, it has to be more. No, it has to be faster. It has to be whatever. And I feel like that's so common in our society right now, just because everybody is like nobody really has time to relax. Everybody is always having to be productive, like in
Yeah.
every minute.
And we fill our brains with information about all the most terrible things everywhere in the entire world, and we feel responsible for all of them at the same time, and so it can get really overwhelming. But blue vervain is
Yeah.
really good at going into your mind and saying these things you don't have to hold on to that will allow you to focus on the things you can actually do something about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like these things you
Amazing.
can't control,
Mhm.
and that doesn't make like that doesn't make them good. They're still bad, but you can't actually control them, and you need to find a way to be okay with not being in control.
Yeah.
And it's kind of amazing to have a plant just walk up to you and say, "No, it's time to be okay with that." And you're like, "Really? I
Yeah.
I don't know if I can." And it's like you can.
I want
And
that day. I want a plant to walk up to me and say that. That's fantastic.
right? Right?
Sounds good, right?
Right? And it's
Yeah.
also really beautiful. And it's
Yeah.
growing in our yard in a lot of places that I'm really excited about.
Blue vervain is like this spindly candelabra with these like blue violet little torch flowers that grow up at the top of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh, I feel
it's
like
gorgeous.
I've seen that or I can picture that really well. I'm not sure.
Could
Mm.
be.
It's also a like native European plant and
May have
like
came over
British
here.
plant, so it's really
Could bet, yeah.
possible it could have come over. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, well, that was so helpful. I'm so excited to learn more about plants. I ask you the final question, I need to ask you a question before that, which is if someone's
And
listening
ultimate.
and they're like, okay, I can't forage and I don't know how to do it, so I'm not going to do it. I don't want to garden. Like, I'll do my best, but I can't garden everything. Where do you get herbs from then? Like, where can you get them? That's a good place. I don't know
Yeah.
if it's because I'm in Australia, but I've got a lot of listeners in America and Europe. But just in general, what
Yeah.
can people do? Where can we go?
Well, okay, so in the US, we usually direct people to
Mhm.
mountainroseherbs.com because they are really committed to sustainability, really committed to high quality, and they have a large selection.
Right.
Now, just because they have a large selection doesn't mean that they never run out of things, but they have like if you're looking for something, they probably will have it, or in a month or two they'll have it, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
Mhm.
And if I moved to Australia, I would be looking for like the habits and the commitments of some herb company that I was going to order from. And I'd
Mhm.
be looking for things like that where they're committed to sustainability, and that means that sometimes they run out of stuff
Yeah.
because they're not going to just go and find the cheapest supplier or whatever supplier is available. They've got these standards for who they're going to buy from.
And
They
also that they test,
Yeah.
because there's nothing wrong with importing herbs from other places, as long as the practices are fair and the people that you're importing them from are getting paid a fair wage.
Yeah.
But there are heavy metals and other kind of pollutants that are like in question. And so it's important to have a place that lab tests to make sure that there isn't contamination in their end product.
Yeah. So, you're analyzing your herb supplier and trying to figure out what their degree of attention to these kind of things is as
Mhm.
as one of the steps you take when you evaluate if you want to buy from them. But I would also just point out that there's a lot of herbs at the grocery store, you know? I mean,
Yes.
you mentioned ginger and turmeric earlier. In grocery stores, you can often get, culinary plants like basil and sage and rosemary and thyme and oregano and
Parsley,
savory and
and did you say
parsley.
garlic?
Garlic, I mean,
Yeah.
God. Garlic is one of the most powerful herbs on the planet. It's one of the most important in like most of the major medical traditions throughout history, where people could bring garlic, like before writing, people were moving garlic around the world and saying, "This is
Mhm.
critically important stuff. You got to have
Mhm.
it." You know,
Wow.
you can do that plant. Yeah,
Yeah, it's an important plant.
it's
And it's like, oh, it's for spaghetti sauce. No, 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 it's really important. Yeah.
Wow.
But also, we have, and I think this is funny. We have kind of a large Australian student body. And I don't really know how that happened, but it's pretty exciting. And so we do have a list of Australian herb suppliers that people like. And I do not have it off the top of my head, but I can send it to you
Yeah, I'll put
so
it
that
in the
you
show
can
notes. That'll
go.
be
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Right on.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I'm not
Sometimes,
surprised. I want to come and study too. Which is
yeah, yeah.
which is literally my final question, which is what can people do if you'd like to learn more? Obviously, your
Oh yeah.
podcast is a beautiful free resource for anyone who needs that. But anything else you'd like to share about teaching us? If someone's really like, I want to, this is the stuff.
Yeah.
What do I
Yeah.
do? Yeah.
So that podcast is the Holistic Herbalism podcast. We should be on any of the, platforms or apps you use to get it. If not, let me know and we'll get on there. But yeah, so that's our podcast. And then we have an entire online school.
Yeah. So if you are just beginning and you do not know anything about herbalism, that's okay. We got you. And if you are wanting to build a career and work clinically as an herbalist, we've got you there too. So, and all the steps in between, we are really kind of obsessed with rigorous study and rigorous education. Um, but we also understand that like when you get home from work at night, you're tired. And what people have the energy to do at night after work is get some food and sit in front of the television. And so, it's really hard to weed through a lot of books and try to like weave all of that into a structure that becomes a full-fledged practice. And so, instead, we made all of our courses online and they're all video. So instead of watching whatever television show you were watching, you just watch herbalism instead. Since this is a podcast, Your people probably like podcasts. And so for every video, we also have an audio file so that you can listen to it if you want to go for a walk in the woods or in whatever nature is around you. Or if you just have chores to do or kids to chase around or whatever. And then we have printable stuff that if you're a person who learns best by seeing stuff on paper, you can print it out and help that build your notes.
Yeah. We were trying to recreate the in-person class experience because for about a decade, well, a little more than that, we would teach group people come in for a long weekend once a month for a year or more, and we would teach them herbalism that way. But as we, moved online, we were able to like expand the amount of content that we could give because you can only lecture for so long.
Yeah, like people have to go.
So we were able to expand that way, but we wanted to people to not feel like they're out there on their own, right? So we've incorporated a bunch of ways for students to contact us and a couple other faculty members directly. Like you're watching a video lesson, you can click a button, open a discussion thread, type in a question, and we'll answer you like within 24 hours, There's a community space where people can go and discuss and like share what they're growing and what they're excited about.
It's not on Facebook. It's totally private.
Separate from Facebook, And we do we do twice a week, a little more than twice a week. We do these Q&A sessions with our students live so they can talk to us directly that way and kind of get their questions answered. We don't want people to just be like out there on their own.
Yeah.
Self-study is valid, but it's also actually quite difficult to do in a rigorous and complete way. So we're trying to like navigate that where people can take things at their own pace. They can take as long as they need to. Like we don't have a time limit on your course access.
Yeah, it's all lifetime access. Yeah.
But they also aren't alone, and they can connect to us in a bunch of different ways, whatever's convenient for them.
To each other.
Yeah, and to each other. Yeah.
That's incredible. Amazing.
So it's all online at commonwealthherbs.com, and please go there and check us out.
Yeah. I'll put all those links and the places you've brought up in the show notes below for easy access. But thank you so much for your time. I understand it's probably late in the evening for you guys, so I really appreciate that you're here and that you gave your time and energy, because I've learned so much, and I know that the listeners will have as well. And I'm sure they'll leave us some comments and go and check you out on Instagram and everything like that. But thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for your time and your energy. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to learn more.
Oh, well, I'm just really excited to know you, like to get to know you. Like, and thanks for writing. Thanks for popping up. And that's wicked cool.
Yeah, this was fun.
Of course. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your time.
You bet.
Bye.
Thank you.